All right, everyone. Welcome to episode number 2 of Bitcoin Banter. I've got Tony here again. The other guys can't join again, so we'll get the whole clan. But this was a fun conversation last time. I'm looking forward to this. We got some exciting news going on. Tony, how you doing these days?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Let's just jump right into this. I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to talk about the End the Fed bill that was introduced by Thomas Massie on May 16th. So he said, just introduced the End the Fed bill. Americans would be better off if the Federal Reserve did not exist. I know your opinion on this, but I would like to hear it nonetheless. Talk to me.
Well, this was a curveball that I was not expecting, but it was definitely like my cup of caffeine in the morning. When I read this, I'm like, whoa, what just happened? So, I mean, look, I mean, at the end of the day, thankfully, there are people with common sense that are finally pushing back in the right direction. I mean, and the Fed, I mean, what's that saying? If I forget who said it, but someone said if somebody understood how the banking system would work, there'd be like a revolution overnight, right? So the Fed, I mean, responsible for the calamity that's in the economy today. Well, they're 100% responsible. Irresponsible fiscal policy, money printing, theft, lies, corruption, like you name it. The list is endless. And at some point, enough is enough. And now people in the right positions are pushing back to get rid of this cancer, which is literally eating the country alive. And I hope it passes. And I'm optimistic that it'll, garner enough support to put an end to this rubbish once and for all.
Yeah, what I'm not clear on is to what extent he has support outside of himself and a handful of others. My sense is there's a bit of it. I think here we got original co-sponsors. Yeah, so a lot of Republicans. I don't see any Democrats on here, which probably isn't real surprising, but it says the Federal Reserve Board Abolition Act was first introduced by Ron Paul back in 1999, which is unsurprising. He talked a lot about ending the Fed.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, what's interesting to me is I don't know if it'll go through. I think the fact that I remember back in 2008 when Ron Paul was talking about ending the Fed. I was in college, and so it was the last thing on my mind. I didn't realize what the implications of that were. But I think there's an awakening that's sort of happening. Like the woke left has gone so far that more and more people I think are asking questions of like why, like they're pushing back on gender ideology and all this nonsense. And I think now prices are rising and they're like, well, what's this all about? And they're beginning to like investigate. People, just your average person is investigating a little bit more. I was talking with someone came over the other day to fix our AC unit in our house, and he was asking me what I did, and I told him I work in Bitcoin, and he's like, man, groceries are so expensive. He starts talking about how expensive his groceries are and everything. So I think there truly is like an awareness that maybe a bill like this has a prayer that 10 years ago, it 15 years ago it wouldn't have. So we can only hope, I think, at this point, but we'll keep our eyes on it.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, there's only so much you can push insanity, until you go past the point, past the breaking point, and then that's it. You're like that oops moment. And I think they've gone past that oops moment, and now things have broken
Yeah.
beyond the point of fixing. And people are aware of this. People are hurting. They can't afford anything. It's almost like a Mad Max scenario brewing. More and more. With each passing day.
Mhm.
And when people need answers, so where are you going to get these answers? I mean, obviously we have options now in the monetary system. We have Bitcoin, which is gaining a lot more steam as more people ask the intelligent questions and understand it more. But at the same time, there's also people now wanting to resurface they end the Fed, because now they know where the problem comes from, and they
Mhm.
want to cut it off, permanently. I
Yeah.
hope it. I hope it gathers a lot more support. I think it should, especially these days. When the pain is real, it shouldn't be hard to amass, a big volume behind something like this. And let's see where it goes. I mean, you have to remain optimistic. You have to keep pushing, the right message and hold your ground. You can't be let yourself be swayed by fear or get intimidated by a bunch of criminals and thieves at the end of the day. Like, I mean, that has to stop.
Amen. For sure. All righty. News number two, Julian Assange, WikiLeaks founder, allowed to appeal extradition from the UK to US. So I'll just tell you so when I first heard about Julian Assange when he came onto the scene, I guess it was maybe like 2010. I thought he was a criminal. I was just I was young. And it didn't really occur to me that perhaps he was onto something. I was just sort of fed
Mm,
the mainstream narrative. And as I obviously went down the proverbial Bitcoin rabbit hole, learned a lot of these individuals who have been vilified by the mainstream media have actually performed a public service. So this is a big win for him that if he ends up on US soil, my sense is he's spending the rest of his life in prison for trying to shed light on a lot of evil. Any thought, have you looked into this much or any thoughts? I assume you have some thoughts on Julian Assange.
Well, I'm in the same camp as you. When this story first broke out, I was also not paying attention to much, so I sort of like, I read it. Yeah, it's, whatever. Like, I didn't really pay attention to it. But, it's only recently that I also, started to research this information a bit more. And I'm very happy that, he's in this position now to avoid going there, because forget spending the rest of his days in jail. I think he'll be killed,
Mhm.
for essentially telling the truth. There's a lot of ugliness that has happened in the past, like when you're casting a spotlight on American war crimes, I mean, which is, I think, essentially what, he was doing when he blurted out whatever, all that information. And there's a lot of people in very, prominent positions right now that, risk getting completely obliterated should this news leak. But again, this falls back to what I was saying earlier. I think we've reached the point of no return where these things now, the cracks have started to open. And now all they're going to do is open wider and quicker. And the ugliness is going to start coming out, in bigger droves. And how that manifests, only time will tell. But
Mhm.
as history always dictates, truth ultimately prevails, because given enough time, the silent lions, so to speak, wake up, and there's more of us than what people realize. And even though we're not 100%, we don't need to be.
Mhm.
We just need to be enough in order to push back and make the wrongs right.
Yep. No, I completely agree. And again, back to this, I think people have woken up to the possible evils of the Federal Reserve. Not most, not, and not as many as we need, but enough that maybe they create a stir for that first bill. I think there are probably more and more people like myself who, I guess what 14 years ago thought that Julian Assange was just a criminal, who have maybe come around to imagine if the politicians that they don't trust these days and have been unable to rein in illegal immigration and have overseen massive price inflation of everything that they need to live their lives, are saying that Assange is a criminal. Maybe he's not so bad, right? Like maybe,
Yeah, seriously.
it's yeah, they've shot themselves in the foot enough times, I think, that people are probably just skeptical of anyone who's being vilified, especially post-COVID, anyone who's being vilified by sort of the mainstream narrative and the talking heads in Washington and elsewhere. So fingers crossed for him. I think his wife's speaking at BTC Prague, maybe. So
Yes, it's very possible. She's very outspoken. She's been fighting. Incredible woman. To with the support that she's been providing him. Throughout all this time. Um, I'm happy things are playing out in his advantage. Hopefully, this whole thing gets thrown out and he's released back into the free world. As a normal human being, and just to put things right again.
absolutely. All righty. So yesterday we had Bitcoin Pizza Day. Did you have some pizza, Tony?
Of course, man.
You
Of,
celebrated?
of
Good,
course, man.
man.
Spicy tomato sauce, a bit of jalapenos. No pineapple for me though. I don't know
Oh
about
no,
you.
that's sinful. No, I would never put pineapple on a pizza. But yeah, 10,000 Bitcoin for two Papa John's pizzas. And today I saw a statistic. Not only would it be worth $700 million, but it would be enough to buy a 40% stake in Papa John's.
That must have been
So
one delicious pizza, you know.
oh man, I hope he and his kids enjoyed it, because that's he doesn't seem regretful. You know, he said he made the point, hey,
No,
at
man.
at 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 the time it was, it was pennies or whatever. So good for
It was
him.
the first successful proof of concept, that you can actually pay for something. This should be made into a national holiday. We should have like official Bitcoin pizza day, where it's like a national holiday. People take the day off and just, eat pizza and
Stuff
celebrate.
themselves with pizza. No,
Yeah, yeah,
I
exactly.
I completely agree. All right.
It's
Awesome.
gonna
All righty,
it's gonna be
man.
great.
Tony, good
See,
talking. We'll catch up soon.
Cosmo, absolutely, man. Catch you later.
All righty. Cheers.
Cheers, man. Bye bye.
Bye.